You were born without fear. You didn't come into this world afraid, you learned it. It was whispered to you by frightened parents, preached to you by trembling priests, taught to you by a society that survives on your insecurity. Fear was never yours. It was given to you, and you accepted it as truth. But the moment you see that fear was planted in you, it begins to die, because no lie can survive in awareness. And so in this message, I will show you how fear is not something to fight, but something to understand. You will see that fear is not a real enemy, it is a shadow created by your own mind. You will learn to watch it, to face it, and to see through it until it disappears. I will reveal why fear exists, how society keeps it alive, and how you can finally live without it, not by becoming fearless, but by waking up to the truth that fear was never yours in the first place. Once you see fear clearly, freedom is inevitable. You've been taught to live carefully, to stay safe, to avoid risk, as if safety were life's highest goal. You've been told not to make mistakes, not to stand out, not to feel too deeply. This constant caution has made you smaller and smaller until even breathing feels dangerous. People call this being responsible. I call it being afraid. You have been trained to survive, not to live. And because everyone around you lives the same way, you think fear is natural. But it's not. It's learned, and what's learned can be unlearned. In this talk, we'll go deep into the roots of fear, where it begins, how it controls you, and how awareness dissolves it. I will show you why you cling to fear even when it hurts you, and why the mind depends on it to survive. We'll explore the subtle ways fear hides behind control, behind love, behind ambition. You'll see that fear is not a monster waiting in the dark, it's a shadow cast by misunderstanding. And once you bring the light of seeing, it cannot remain. Stay with me. Because what you're about to discover isn't how to escape fear, but how to wake up from it completely. Here's something most people completely miss: fear didn't begin with you. You were not born trembling. You were born crying, yes, but that was not fear, it was life rushing into you. A newborn has no concept of danger, no idea of safety, no worry about tomorrow. The child does not know death, it only knows being. Fear enters later, whispered by voices that love you but don't understand life themselves. They hand it to you like an inheritance, thinking they are protecting you, but really they are passing down their own trembling hearts. Think about it. As a small child, you touch fire and your mother shouts, "No!" Her voice is sharp, her eyes wide, and you learn two things in that instant. Not just that fire burns, but that fear is the proper response to life. Don't climb that tree, you'll fall. Don't talk to strangers, they might hurt you. Don't fail, don't cry, don't be too loud. Each don't becomes a thread in the web of fear, spun not by evil, but by love mixed with ignorance. Those who raised you were themselves raised in fear. They meant well, but meaning well doesn't stop the poison from spreading. A child doesn't inherit money or property, first he inherits fear. Parents give what they have, and because fear wears the mask of care, you never question it. You start believing that to be careful is to be safe, that to obey is to survive, that to be small is to be loved. And slowly, the wild river of life inside you is dammed. What once flowed freely becomes cautious, hesitant, afraid of its own depth. But here's the tragedy. What began as protection soon becomes a prison. The same voice that once said, "Don't touch the fire," now says, "Don't risk, don't speak, don't dream too big." And you obey, even though no one is shouting anymore. The world doesn't have to scare you now. The voice has moved inside. You've become your own warden, guarding the walls that were built to protect you. Society rewards this obedience. It calls it maturity. A fearful person is easy to manage. They buy what they're told, believe what they're told, follow where they're told. The man without fear is dangerous because he cannot be controlled. That's why every institution, every religion, every system begins by making you afraid. Afraid of punishment, afraid of failure, afraid of being alone, afraid of yourself. Because once you are afraid, you can be guided not by awareness, but by authority. This is how fear became the foundation of civilization. Without it, governments would crumble, priests would be powerless, armies would have no soldiers. Fear has been society's most effective leash. And the more afraid you are, the more respectable you seem, because the world is upside down. Cowardice is called caution, obedience is called virtue, and trembling is mistaken for wisdom. Yet look at the trees, look at the birds, look at the sky. Do they live with fear? The tree doesn't worry if the storm will break its branches. The bird doesn't think if the wind might fail. Existence itself knows no fear, only man does. Because man thinks he is separate from it. Fear began the moment you believed you were apart from life, that you had something to lose. A wave cannot be afraid of the ocean, but you were told you are not the ocean. That lie is the root of all fear. So now, the question arises, if fear was given to you, not born in you, can it be returned? Can you unlearn what was never yours? Of course. But first, you must see how you've become addicted to it, how you've made it part of your identity. Because fear doesn't just live in you, you keep it alive. You feed it every day through your thoughts, your worries, your imagination, and you call this being realistic. Once you see that fear was planted, not born, you can start to loosen its roots. You can begin to remember what life felt like before you were taught to tremble. That innocence is still inside you, waiting. The child who was not afraid of the dark is still there, just buried beneath layers of borrowed fear. And when you see that clearly, something inside you begins to shift. The cage rattles. The prisoner begins to wake up. Now, let's go deeper. You were not just given fear, you were trained to feed it, to protect it, to make it grow. You became the caretaker of your own enemy. Let's explore how that happens, how fear survives only because you keep giving it your attention. Here's what almost no one realizes. Fear is not real. It is not made of substance, not made of flesh or fire. It's made of thought. It lives only when you look at it. The moment you stop feeding it with your attention, it dies of starvation. But because you've been taught to run from fear, you've never learned to see what it truly is. You've been running from your own shadow, and the faster you run, the larger it appears. Fear can't exist in the present moment. It can only live in the idea of tomorrow. Think of it. Have you ever been afraid now? In this exact second, fear has no foothold. It's always about something that might happen. The mind creates an image, a projection. What if I fail? What if I am rejected? What if I die? These what ifs are the food of fear. The more you think, the more fear grows, because thinking itself is rooted in time, past and future. Awareness, on the other hand, is timeless. That's why in deep presence, fear dissolves like mist in sunlight. The mind survives through fear. Without fear, the mind would have no fuel. Have you noticed? When you are afraid, you think more endless scenarios, endless analysis, endless stories. Fear keeps the mind busy. And a busy mind is an unconscious mind. The moment you stop thinking, even for a breath, there is no fear, because fear needs an audience. It needs you to identify with its voice, to say, this is my fear. But fear doesn't belong to you. It is not your emotion. It is a movement of thought that passes through the sky of your being, like a dark cloud across a bright sun. You are not afraid of life, you are afraid of losing control over it. That's the root. Control gives the illusion of safety, and fear thrives on that illusion. The mind says, if I can control everything, the future, people, outcomes, I will never have to feel fear again. But that very attempt to control is fear in disguise. The more you try to hold life still, the more it slips through your fingers, and the more terrified you become. Life cannot be controlled, only understood. And understanding comes through awareness, not through effort. Imagine you are walking in the twilight and you see a snake coiled in your path. You freeze in terror. But as you look closer, you realize it's only a rope. The fear vanishes instantly, not because the rope disappeared, but because the misunderstanding did. The moment you saw clearly, fear lost its power. That's exactly how fear works. The rope was never the problem. Your mind's projection was. Fear is always a misperception, a shadow mistaken for substance. The mind is like a movie screen. Fear is its favorite film. It projects danger where there is none and convinces you the story is real. And because you've been hypnotized by that story since childhood, you've forgotten how to look at life without the filter of fear. The moment something feels uncertain, you interpret it as a threat. A silence becomes loneliness. A risk becomes failure. A change becomes death. You've forgotten that uncertainty is not danger, it's freedom. There is a small parable I often tell. An actor once forgot he was on stage. He looked down at his costume and saw the blood from a fake wound and began to scream. The audience laughed, thinking he was brilliant, unaware that he had truly lost himself in the role. The same is true of you. You become so identified with the play of the mind that you believe the stage to be life, the script to be truth, the fear to be yours. But the moment you remember that you are the actor, not the role, all the panic disappears. You see, fear is a shadow that cannot walk in the light of awareness. Bring the light of seeing to it, and it has nowhere to hide. But if you close your eyes, it appears solid and monstrous. That's why awareness is not just the cure, it's the end of fear itself. So begin to observe fear. Don't analyze it. Don't fight it. Don't justify it. Just look at it directly. See what happens in your body when fear arises. Notice how your breath shortens. Your shoulders tighten. Your mind begins to spin. Don't interfere. Just watch. Slowly, the watcher and the fear will separate. You will begin to realize there is fear, yes, but it is not you. It is just a movement of energy passing through. When this seeing deepens, fear becomes transparent. You can see through it as easily as through smoke. You can still feel its presence, but it no longer binds you. You can walk with it, talk with it, even laugh at it, because now you know it depends on your attention, not the other way around. And when you finally see this truth, that fear lives through your gaze, something beautiful happens. You stop fighting it. You stop running. You turn toward it with curiosity, with compassion. You say, "Come, show me what you are." And in that moment of seeing, fear has no choice but to bow and disappear. Now that you understand how fear feeds on your attention, another question arises: if fear isn't yours, who is it that feels afraid? Who is this I that trembles when thought arises? Is it real or just another shadow pretending to be you? Let's go deeper into this mystery. What I am about to say might feel strange at first, because you've spent your whole life believing the voice of fear was your own. You've carried it like a heartbeat, constant, unquestioned, woven into your thoughts so tightly that it feels like identity. But what if fear was never you? What if it was only an echo, the leftover sound of a frightened world still vibrating inside your mind? The moment you begin to look closely, you'll see that fear has always been something happening to you, not something that is you. It's like hearing thunder and thinking it's your voice. Fear feels personal because you've made it personal. You've said, "I'm afraid." And in that moment of identification, you gave it a home. You invited it inside, built it a bed, and called it your truth. Every time fear arose, you said, "This is me." And so it stayed. But the watcher, the silent awareness that observes fear, has never trembled. Have you noticed? Even in your most terrified moments, a part of you remains untouched, simply watching. You might be shaking, your heart might be racing, your breath might be shallow, but something inside remains steady. That is your real self, the sky beyond the storm. You believe the voice of fear is your inner voice, but it's only an echo from the past. It belongs to others, parents, priests, teachers, cultures, people who spoke from their own anxiety, from their own ignorance, from their own wounds. They said, "Be careful," and their fear entered you. They said, "Don't question," and their trembling became your obedience. They said, "The world is dangerous," and you stopped exploring. Every fear has a parent. Every doubt has an ancestor. And if you listen carefully, you'll realize that most of what frightens you doesn't belong to your experience at all. It's borrowed language, inherited trembling, someone else's nightmare still haunting your dreams. The ego loves to adopt these voices. It thrives on identity, and fear is one of its most loyal disguises. It says, "I am afraid, I am anxious, I am unworthy." But the watcher can see even this. The watcher knows that these are only words, only ripples on the surface. The observer doesn't need to fix the ripple, it only needs to see it. The moment you can say, there is fear, but I am not it, the illusion begins to crack. The one who sees cannot be what is seen. Imagine standing before a mirror filled with dark clouds. You look at the reflection and say, I am gloomy. But step back and realize you are the clear sky behind the glass. The clouds are passing, they have no power over the sky. The mirror reflects them, but it is never changed by them. That's what awareness does. It reflects all fear, joy, desire, pain, but remains untouched. When you know yourself as the mirror, fear loses its grip completely. Another image I love is this. You are walking at sunset and your shadow stretches long across the ground. Suddenly you see it move and mistake it for someone else. You panic, start to run, and the faster you run, the faster it chases you. But the shadow is you, it cannot harm you. It was only following. Fear works the same way. It's only your own reflection stretched by the light of thought. Once you turn around and face the sun, the shadow falls behind. When you realize that you are not the fear but the witness of it, something subtle but immense shifts within you. A gap appears between you and the mind. The body may still feel the tremor, but now you can watch it like you would watch waves on the ocean, rising, falling, but never touching the depth below. That depth is your consciousness, and in that depth, no fear can survive. Because fear needs movement, noise, confusion. It cannot breathe in silence. Practice watching when fear arises. Don't say, I am afraid. Instead, say, fear is here. Feel the difference. One statement makes you the prisoner. The other makes you the witness. And as the witness grows stronger, the prisoner begins to disappear. You don't fight the fear, you outgrow it. It's like a snake shedding its skin. The old layers of conditioning fall away and you walk freer, lighter, clearer. And this is only the beginning, because once you have seen that you are not the fear, a new question awakens within you. Who are you? Then, what is this awareness that watches but is never touched? Can there be a life lived entirely from that stillness, where fear comes and goes like passing clouds, but the sky remains undisturbed? Yes. And to live from that center is what I call freedom. But the mind will try to reclaim its throne. It will whisper, without fear, you'll become careless. Without control, you'll fall. Don't listen. These are the dying words of an illusion losing power. When awareness becomes continuous, when you begin to live as the witness, fear no longer finds a place to hide. The storm may still pass overhead, but you are the sky. Let's explore now what happens when awareness becomes so total, so constant, that fear cannot even touch you, the state of the silent witness. The silent witness, that is the space where fear cannot enter, where all storms end before they even begin, where the waves of emotion rise and fall, but the ocean remains perfectly still. To reach this state is not to fight fear, nor to conquer it, but simply to see it as it truly is, a movement of the mind, passing through the vastness of consciousness, unable to touch what you truly are. Most people try to become fearless by resisting fear. They fight it, argue with it, suppress it, and in doing so, they unknowingly give it life. Resistance is the oxygen of fear. The moment you say, "I must not be afraid," you are already afraid. But the witness does not resist, it watches. It allows fear to be exactly as it is, trembling, raw, alive, and in that allowing, fear loses its substance. True courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the presence of awareness in the midst of it. When you are conscious, even trembling becomes beautiful. You can feel the pulse of life moving through your body. The same energy that once terrified you now feels sacred. In awareness, fear becomes just another face of energy, no different from joy or excitement. The difference is perception. When you look through the eyes of the ego, fear feels heavy, suffocating, dangerous. When you look through the eyes of the witness, it becomes transparent, almost light, like smoke rising and dissolving into air. Meditation is the bridge to this witnessing. It is not an escape from fear. It is the art of seeing it clearly. Sit silently and let fear come. Don't invite it. Don't push it away. Just wait, alert, breathing, watching. Soon you'll begin to notice that fear has a rhythm. It builds, it peaks, it fades. It's a wave, and waves cannot exist without the ocean beneath them. When you stay as the ocean, the wave no longer overwhelms you. It becomes a part of your dance. People think meditation means to stop thoughts. That is not meditation, that is suppression. Meditation means to watch thoughts without getting lost in them. The thoughts can be there, the emotions can be there, even fear can be there, but you are no longer entangled. You are sitting at the center of the cyclone, untouched by the wind. You can see how the mind projects stories, memories, possibilities, and you simply say, "Ah, there goes fear again." The same way you would watch a bird fly across the sky. When awareness expands, the inner space expands with it. Suddenly, there is room for everything: anger, joy, sadness, fear, and because there is space, nothing dominates you anymore. Fear cannot suffocate you in a vast sky. It can only do that in a small, crowded mind. So enlarge your sky whenever fear comes. Instead of shrinking, open up, breathe deeper, feel your body soften. Let the energy of fear spread through you, not as panic, but as pure sensation. Don't give it a name. Don't call it bad. Just be with it. The watcher within you will remain unmoved, and that stillness will begin to shine through every cell of your being. In that stillness, fear becomes irrelevant. You don't have to conquer it because there is no one left to conquer. The warrior who fought fear realizes there was never an enemy at all. The sword drops from his hand, he smiles, and the battle ends. When awareness becomes continuous, fear cannot find a crack to enter. It may knock, but no one answers. It may whisper, but the house is empty. You are simply presence, vast, silent, awake. Have you ever watched the sunrise after a long night of storm? The clouds break apart, The sky glows gold and the air feels newly born. You don't chase away the darkness. It leaves on its own. Awareness is like that sunrise. It doesn't fight with fear. It simply reveals the light that was always there. The night disappears not because you forced it, but because it never truly belonged to the sky. And in this state of witnessing, life changes completely. You begin to live with a calm that no chaos can disturb. Fear loses its meaning. Death loses its sting. You move through the world as if floating, rooted yet free, grounded yet open. You act, but there is no tension. You feel, but there is no attachment. Everything passes through. You love, pain, joy, fear, and nothing leaves a scar. This is the beauty of the silent witness. It participates in life fully, but never becomes entangled in it. Once you taste this awareness, even for a single breath, you will understand what true freedom is. It's not about controlling your life or protecting yourself from fear. It's about realizing that nothing can touch what you truly are. The mind may tremble, the body may age, circumstances may change, but the witness remains unchanged, eternal. You can lose everything in life, but not this awareness. It was here before you were born, and it will be here long after the body returns to dust. And now that you've seen that awareness dissolves fear by simply making it unnecessary, something extraordinary begins to happen. The same energy that once appeared as fear begins to transform. What was trembling becomes radiance. What was contraction becomes openness. What was the prison becomes the path. Let's move into that space now to see how fear itself becomes the doorway to freedom. This next part may sound impossible until you experience it, that the very energy you once called fear can become your greatest teacher, your most loyal companion on the path to freedom. Because fear, when understood, doesn't have to be an obstacle. It becomes an opening. Every fear you have is not against you, it is for you. It shows you where you are still holding on, where you are still asleep, where you are still believing a lie about yourself. Each fear is a doorway waiting to be walked through. But because you've been taught to run, you've never seen the door, only the shadow it casts. Fear points directly to the place where awakening is possible. If you're afraid of love, it means love is exactly where your freedom lies. If you're afraid of failure, it means surrendering to failure will free you from the illusion of success. Fear is not random, it's precise. It reveals the edges of your false self. The mind wants to avoid fear, but awareness uses it like a lantern. Wherever fear appears, it's lighting up the next truth that's ready to be seen. But you can only see this if you stop fighting with fear. To fight it is to strengthen it. To run from it is to repeat it. The only way beyond fear is through it, not around it, not above it, but straight through its heart. This is why I say transforming fear is not about bravery, it's about surrender. The courageous man and the coward are not opposites, they are the same. Both are driven by fear. The coward runs from it, the brave man hides it, but both are haunted by it. The man of awareness is different. He neither runs nor hides. He allows fear to be. He walks with it, hand in hand, without resistance, When you face fear fully, without the armor of control, it reveals its true nature. Beneath the shaking, beneath the racing heart, beneath the trembling breath, there is something alive, vibrant, electric, full of energy. That is not fear, that is life itself. The energy of fear is just energy neutral, pure, potent. It becomes fear only when the mind labels it as such. Without the label, it is simply life moving through you intensely. When you allow that intensity without interpretation, it turns into trust. In surrender, fear turns into trust. The more you allow, the more you see that existence is not against you. The river is not trying to drown you, it's trying to carry you home. Trust begins when you stop demanding guarantees from life. You start to see that uncertainty is not your enemy, it's your liberation. When you cling to certainty, you stay small, closed, afraid. When you relax into uncertainty, something vast opens inside you, a soft, quiet confidence that doesn't come from control but from connection. You trust not because you know what will happen, but because you know who you are, the watcher, the witness, the unshakable silence behind all movement. Let me tell you something beautiful. The caterpillar doesn't know that becoming a butterfly will require its own death. It only feels fear as it dissolves in the cocoon, not knowing that this death is transformation, not destruction. Every fear you face is a cocoon moment. You think you are dying, but you are only shedding the shell of who you were. Fear feels like death because it threatens the false self, and the false self must die for truth to be born. That's why the mind trembles. It senses its own end every time you grow closer to awareness. But you, the real you, are not dying. You are awakening. It's the same with the diver standing at the edge of the cliff. His legs shake. His breath tightens. His heart races. But the moment he jumps, fear turns into freedom. The air that terrified him becomes the same air that carries him. The fall he feared becomes flight. The energy never changed, only his relationship to it did. This is the miracle of awareness. It transforms poison into medicine, chains into wings, prisons into paths. When you see fear as a doorway, not a dead end, you start to live differently. You no longer avoid discomfort. You welcome it. You begin to walk toward what scares you, not away from it. Because you've learned that beyond every trembling is treasure. Each time you enter fear consciously, a part of the false self dies and something luminous is born. And with each death, life becomes lighter, freer, more joyful, and in the deepest surrender, fear becomes love. Because fear and love are the same energy moving in opposite directions. Fear is the contraction of life. Love is its expansion. Fear says, I don't trust existence. And love says, I am existence. When you stop fighting fear, when you stop demanding certainty, you melt into the flow of life, and that melting is love. From love comes trust, from trust comes peace, and from peace comes freedom. Osho once said, go into your fear, and you'll find the door of your courage. And it's true, courage isn't found by defeating fear. It's found by walking so deeply into it that fear itself disappears. It dissolves in the light of your awareness, leaving behind only clarity and strength. The prison of fear becomes the very path to your liberation. And when that happens, a calm enters your being, not the calm of a man who controls life, but the calm of one who no longer needs to. You begin to live as a flowing river, moving easily around rocks, trusting the current, never questioning where it leads. That serenity is not something you achieve. It's what remains when the noise of fear is gone. It is the natural rhythm of a life lived in harmony with existence. And from here, another understanding dawns. When fear has been transformed into trust, and trust into love, what remains is vast freedom. Freedom not from life, but in life. Freedom that was always yours, hidden beneath the noise of trembling. Let us move into that freedom now and see the sky that was always waiting behind the clouds. When the trembling quiets and love has replaced fear, something vast begins to open within you, a space so wide, so silent, that you feel as though you've been reborn into another dimension of being. It isn't new. It has always been there, but you were too busy looking at your shadows to notice. This is the freedom beyond fear. Not freedom from something, but freedom as something. The sky does not escape the clouds. It simply remains untouched by them. When you realize this, life changes forever. Fear may still visit, but it will come as a guest, not as a ruler. You will look into its eyes and smile, because you will know it is only passing through. Beyond fear, there is vastness, a sense of endlessness that no mind can contain. It is the space of your original nature. When you rest there, nothing can disturb you because you no longer cling to anything. There is no me left to protect, no other to fear. You are simply a witness to the unfolding of existence. Moment by moment, breath by breath, life becomes effortless. Choices arise naturally without anxiety or calculation, because you've stopped living from thought and started living from trust. Even mistakes lose their sting. You understand that life isn't about getting everything right, it's about being awake while it happens. Fear clouds your vision, but the sky of consciousness is never clouded. It only appears so because you're looking from below. You mistake the passing darkness for a permanent condition, but once you rise above the clouds, the sun is always shining. That is enlightenment, not a miracle, not an escape, but the simple seeing that you were never the storm, you were always the sky. The clouds were temporary visitors. They came to pass, not to stay. In this space, you rediscover wonder. The mind that was once obsessed with control relaxes into innocence. Life becomes light again, spontaneous, unpredictable, free. You live like a child jumping into his father's arms, total trust, no hesitation, no doubt. The child doesn't question whether the father will catch him. He jumps because he knows. That's how existence catches you. When you let go completely, life supports you in ways the fearful mind could never imagine. This is what I call the flowering of being. You don't live in reaction anymore. You live in response. You don't calculate. You flow. You don't survive. You celebrate. The simplest things become extraordinary: the sound of the wind, the rhythm of your breath, the smile of a stranger. You no longer need meaning because you found being, and being itself is enough. Freedom is not found through control. Control is the child of fear. The more you try to hold on, the more you suffer, because existence flows and what flows cannot be held. Letting go is the highest form of intelligence, because it's the only movement that aligns you with life's rhythm. When you surrender to what is, resistance dies, and what's left is peace. Look at the open sky again. Storms come and go, clouds gather and vanish, lightning flashes and fades, yet the sky remains the same. It does not mourn the rain or celebrate the sun. It simply is. That is your true nature. Beyond all movement, beyond all emotion, beyond even thought, you are that open expanse of awareness. When you recognize this, fear cannot return, because who would it threaten? There is no one left to protect, no one to defend, no one to lose. So the circle completes itself. Fear was never yours. It was only borrowed. It was a shadow pretending to be substance, a cloud pretending to be the sky. You carried it for lifetimes, thinking it was part of you, but it never was. The moment you look closely, it disappears, and what remains is the same boundless clarity that has been with you since before birth. That is freedom. The freedom that was never lost, only forgotten. And now you can walk in the world with lightness. Fear may whisper, but its voice will sound distant, hollow, unreal. You will smile at it, not out of defiance, but out of compassion, because you'll know that fear too was part of the play, part of the game existence created so that you could one day remember your courage. Without darkness, how would you recognize light? Without fear, how would you discover love? And without illusion, how would you ever wake up? You've come home now to the sky that was always there, to the silence that was never broken, to the being that was never afraid. You don't have to become fearless. You only have to remember who you are. In remembering, everything falls away on its own. And what remains is the truth, clear, simple, infinite. And now, beloved one, we arrive at the silence beyond all words, the space within you that was never afraid, that never trembled, that never moved. The whole journey was only to bring you back here, to this quiet center where nothing is missing, nothing is broken, and nothing needs to be fixed. You came here thinking you had to get rid of fear, that there was a battle to win, a darkness to conquer. But the truth is, fear was never your enemy, it was your guide. Every time you felt afraid, life was pointing you toward awareness. Every time you resisted, existence was whispering, look closer, the one who is afraid is not real. And now you see it, fear was only a story your mind told itself, a dream it mistook for life. You were born fearless. The child does not know caution. It moves with the wind, touches fire, climbs trees, falls and laughs. That wildness was your natural state. The world only taught you trembling. It taught you to hesitate. to second guess, to calculate before each step. It called that maturity, but maturity is not fear. True maturity is freedom, the ability to move through life with total trust. No matter how uncertain the path, to live without fear does not mean to never feel it again. It means to see it for what it is, a shadow that cannot harm the light. Awareness is the light that reveals this truth, and once you see it, fear can never return in the same way. Oh, it may still knock on your door sometimes, but you'll open it smiling. You'll invite it in, offer it tea, and it will vanish in your warmth. You won't resist it, because you'll know that resisting is what kept it alive. Fear can only exist in the absence of understanding. In the light of consciousness, it dissolves instantly, like mist under the morning sun. Now you can live, not survive, live. Fully, deeply, dangerously, beautifully. You can walk through the world without armor, without control, without pretending to be safe. You can dance even when the outcome is uncertain. You can love without holding back. You can speak your truth without fear of judgment. You can face death without flinching, because now you know you are not the body, not the thoughts, not the trembling mind. You are the awareness in which all of these come and go, the infinite sky where fear appears and disappears like passing clouds. Remember this, you were never trapped, only dreaming of walls. You were never in danger, only believing you could be hurt. Life was never your enemy, it was your own misunderstanding that made it seem so. Now that you see, the lie collapses and only truth remains. And what is that truth? That you are eternal, untouched, unbroken. You are not a drop lost in the ocean. You are the ocean pretending to be a drop. The moment you remember this, every illusion of fear dissolves. So take this understanding with you, not as an idea, but as a living presence. Carry it in your breath. Let it move through your words, your walk, your eyes. Live as the fearless space within. Let your silence become your strength, your stillness become your song. Let the world tremble if it must, you stay vast like the sky.